our link, and so that it can be shared, or folks that you know weren't able to join, or if you have to break away or to refer to. So I know we all want to watch this more than one time. I'm Caroline Taylor. I'm the Executive Director for Montgomery Countryside Alliance. I am so pleased to have you all join this evening in what is the second of a three-part series with our partners at Montgomery County Green Bank and the office, Montgomery County Office of Agriculture, on solar on farms in rural areas in the county. Whoop, there went the agenda. There went Christina. Wait, where's Christina? Okay, well, that agenda will be back in a second. It's part 2 of 3, and it is part 1 of 2 for on-farm, farm business solar. Today we'll be talking about accessory solar, and we have with us some folks that will be, okay, so Christina, I'm so sorry, Christina's getting right back on right now. Small technical difficulty. As I said at the beginning, we would like folks to stay on mute. There'll be questions in the chat, and happily there is a survey, a very short survey that will help us to direct further resources to any questions or concerns or issues that you may have. I'm just thrilled that we're able to partner with our friends at MoCo Green Bank and Office of Agriculture to advance more knowledge about getting more solar in farms in the reserve and in the county. So with that, I would like to throw it over to our friend Jeremy Chris from Office of Agriculture to talk about the history of zoning and resources. Jeremy?
Thank you, Caroline. Can you hear me, everyone? Good. Jeremy Chris, Office of Agriculture. I also have Mike Scheffel with me. So we'll have a few comments here at the beginning. Zoning in terms of solar started in 2014. When the county was going through the zoning rewrite process, a decision was made that we needed to look at the zoning code in areas that we really didn't have specific defined uses. And so we came up with a solar collection system in 2014, and that was to define an accessory solar array that would generate no more than 120% of the energy consumption on site that was evaluated over a 5-year period. And we have several examples in the county where farmers went ahead right after 2014 and developed accessory solar. The next zoning decision that was made by the county was in 2018. That's when the county adopted a zoning text amendment 1801 that established community solar in all zones except for the agricultural reserve AR zone. And those solar arrays are for up to 2 megawatt solar field, and they are approved by the Park and Planning Commission under the site plan review and approval process. Then in 2020, Hans Reamer and Tom Hucker with Craig Rice as the co-sponsor introduced the ZTA 2001, and that was the ZTA that proposed community solar in the AR zone. And that was originally proposed to have the site plan review and approval process. When the ZTA was finally adopted by the county council in February of 2021, the community solar in the AR zone will be reviewed and approved under the conditional use of approval process. And so that's a very, very quick summary of how we started with the defined solar collection system in 2014 and how we evolved to the the community solar. Now, the only thing that is important to note is that when we adopted the ZTA 2001, we did expand the threshold for accessory solar from 120% of the on-site energy consumption up to 200%. And we felt that that was a good step in the right direction, creating additional incentives for farmers to install solar to generate, again, 200% of what the on-site energy uses. Now, Mike, I'm sorry, did you put this up, Mike, or is this Christina? This is Christina, you have this? This is our guide. What we put together a guide using the accessory solar in the AR zone and tried to come up with the procedures and standards to guide people on how they can go about installing the 200% accessory solar level. So that's what this document is, and I think we'll have that document to share. There is one other document I wanted to share. We have a summary of all of the projects in the county to date. Here we go. So the first two that are listed there are called mandatory referral. They're county-owned facilities that have to go through the mandatory referral process. One of them, for instance, the former Oaks landfill in Olney, I believe they have it's a more than 2 megawatt installation there on the ground.
6 megawatts.
Would you say, Mike?
It's 3 2-megawatt installations, 6 megawatts of generation.
Thank you, Mike. And then what's listed below, there are projects that came through the ZTA 1801. That's what I was referring to. That allows community solar in all other zones except for the AR zone. Cedar, let's see, Fieldcrest. The Fieldcrest is the third one. That's the only one that's really being installed right now. I mean, if you drove by the Fieldcrest Road along 108, you would see all of the galvanized steel that's being put in the ground. You'll see the trees that are being planted. They started last summer with getting all of the ground ready for pollinator habitat. So Fieldcrest Community Solar is under construction. And then we do have one project that's pending in the AR zone. This is off of Black Rock Road. Some of you may know where this property is. It's about 50 acres and it has 4 communication towers on it. No agricultural operation. It's just being mowed. And they're proposing to put solar with the community, the communication towers that are there now. So the Office of Agriculture, under the ZTA 2001, we are required to look at all of the applications that come in the AR zone. We provide comments to Park and Planning as part of the DRC development review process. And so that's a real quick summary of where we started and where we are. And I'm going to stop there.
Jeremy, can I ask you a quick question now with regard to the AR zone? It was my understanding that there is a wait list of properties that are interested in pursuing in the first energy utility area. Is that correct? Because they're awaiting, there's a quota that's been met by that utility. Is that correct?
Yes, Caroline, it is our understanding that Potomac Edison, which is also First Energy, if you looked at their boundary, they go way out to Western Maryland. So they've got a lot of windmills that are hooked into their grid. They've got a lot of really larger solar installations above 2 megawatt. And so the way that the pilot program was established, each energy company has its quota of alternative energy. It's also referred to as a tariff. And as of that last year, First Energy, Potomac Edison had already met its requirements under the pilot. and anyone else that applied to them, they are put on a waiting list. That's our understanding. There is legislation that's pending in the General Assembly to study these thresholds and tariffs, but we won't know anything about that until April.
Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, so anything else from Office of Agriculture right now? And again, if you have questions, I see at least one that we can get to once we're ready to start addressing those. We're good? Okay, so that document that they provided will be available to all the participants, so you can pour over that in your spare time. So we're lucky also to have Brian Foltz of Paradise Energy Solutions, who's an installer and has graciously added himself to our information stream here. Brian, you want to take it away? And I think you have a PowerPoint as well. You're on mute.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Did somebody upload the PowerPoint?
You should be able to share yourself, but I have yours last I had pulled up. Would you like me to run that, or would you like to run that?
If you could run that, that would be wonderful.
Can do. Give me one moment here, folks.
Thanks, Christina.
Mhm.
And for those of you joining us, Christina Bostic is she's the guru of all of these technological things for us. So thank you for that. All right,
Okay, folks.
Yeah, just a brief introduction. I'm Brian Foltz of Paradise Energy, and we've done a good many projects agriculturally in Montgomery County. So this is sort of my background. We're in 8 different states. So we will click to the next slide. Okay, just a little bit about Paradise Energy. We're founded in 2009. We have a team of over 90 solar experts, and we've done over 1,500 solar installations in the Mid-Atlantic region. Next slide, please. Just a brief overview of how solar works. For those who are new to solar out there, the solar array converts this sunlight into DC current or direct current, and the inverter itself converts the DC to AC or alternating current. And that's obviously what we use on our homes and in our farms. The electric meter itself, your meter distributes to the home or business first. So you're using the real-time usage, the benefits of solar first, and then any excess solar gets sent back onto the grid. And part of that is just performance monitoring. You can view production online, but the excess power gets sent back on the grid. And then when you need these valuable kilowatt hours, the virtual metering, it's a dollar for dollar exchange up to 100% of the power that you're using there on the farm. So that's just a brief overview on how solar works. Next slide, please. So the meat and potatoes, the sizing of the system, and I heard the gentleman talk about 120%, but in Maryland, you can go up to 200% of your annual usage. So what we do, we look at a 12-month running total of your power usage, and now we're talking about Potomac Edison. Potomac Edison has the 1-year history legend on the bottom left side of the bill. So if a farm uses 100,000 kilowatt hours a year, we can actually design a system to offset up to 200% of the annual usage. And part of that, we're going to do an analysis of the service and transformer size, the available space. And when I say payback peaks at 100%, anything you produce over 100% in Maryland, you're only going to get half the balance back. You're only going to get, it's a combination of transmission and distribution, and you're only going to get half that back. And under Potomac Edison, what I saw in 2021, most customers got back about 5 cents per watt. So if you look at their billing, I mean, it varies from 8 cents to 12 cents a watt, depending on what region you're in, but just using aggregate of 10 cents a watt, you're going to get about half that back, or 5 cents a watt, through Potomac Edison. And that's about the same as Pepco. Pepco just historically has a little bit higher rate, so you might get back a little bit more than 5 cents a watt. But the overproduction paid back at avoided cost. So again, you're going to peak at 100% on the investment, but you can do up to 200% on any electrical utility in Maryland. Okay, next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about aggregate net metering and virtual net metering. So this allows one system to connect to the utility meter and offset multiple meters. So if you're a farm in Montgomery County and your farm has 4 meters, and that may be 2 on site and 2 a couple miles away, you can offset all 4 meters with one array through the aggregate net metering program. And you can do up to 200% of all 4 of those meters. So give you an example. Let's just say each meter uses maybe 25,000 kilowatt hours a year. So if we have 4 meters, that's 100,000 kilowatt hours. So the client could build a system up to 200% of that and offset everything within those parameters. But this is only available for farmers who file a Schedule F, government entities, and nonprofits in Maryland. Now, some utilities do have specific requirements for virtual net metering. I'm going to tell you, Potomac Edison has been a little contrary as of late. We're doing a project, Gentle Giants Horse Rescue, a little bit outside the outskirts of Montgomery County. It's in Howard County. And what they're saying to us currently is, as long as you don't need any service upgrades, they would keep you on the residential billing system. So what you're going to encounter, if you need a transformer upgrade, for example, they may switch you over to demand billing. So you would have commercial demand charges, and solar would not offset all of your bills. So there's a little bit of hidden traps in there with Potomac Edison you got to look out for. I don't typically see that with other utilities, but Potomac Edison, the main conduit there is Bob Kearns, and they have an interconnection team there at Potomac Edison. So part of us doing a site assessment, we're going to look and see if the farm needs any type of utility upgrade, and make them aware, hey, if there's a utility upgrade, you may have commercial demand charges. So we've been fighting back pretty aggressively with Potomac Edison on that matter. We've won all the battles so far, but there are some hidden landmines there if you need a service or utility upgrade to go solar. So next slide, please. Project milestones and timing. Project signing to the first day of the job is about 90 days. Part of what we do, we'll go out to the farm, we'll do the site assessment, then I'll have a project manager meet with the property owner. We're going to go over a few details. Then we're going to have to develop permit ready plans for Montgomery County. So the timeline from signing to permit is usually in the 90-day range. For residential projects, they only take about 2 to 3 days to install. Commercial projects can vary, but you're looking on different systems. It could be a week up to a month or so to install the project, depending on the project size in Montgomery County. Okay, next slide. Part of the customer versus installer responsibilities, we have them articulated here on this chart. Of course, the installer should be doing a site evaluation, looking at all these factors up front. And when I hear us talk about these big projects in Montgomery County, whether it's community solar or anything like that, if the farm does not have access to 3-phase power, that's sort of a showstopper right there. You're not going to be able to do a lot of solar on the farm. So when you look at community solar, a large system, or if you're looking to do any type of system through PJM, which is over 2 megawatts, If there's not three-phase there or it's not close by, it's going to be a showstopper at that point in time. So customer's responsibility, signing the contract, design and permits are all done by the installer, which would be us. Parts, labor, installation is done by the installer. Internet access, that could be the farm or we can put an air card out there at the farm. The reason we need to have internet access, we're going to need to be able to monitor the system to see if there's any type of hardware issue, if a module is not producing, anything like that. So whether the customer or the installer has internet access, it's better that both have access to it. We do a 10 warranty and production guarantee. So for 10 years, we're going to guarantee the production of the system. So the kilowatt hours are guaranteed in writing. So we're going to have access and be able to monitor the system. As far as the maintenance, really there is no maintenance to a solar array with us, especially for the first decade. What you run into with solar, any system we install probably has a shelf life of 35 to 40 years. However, sometime in the midterm, you may have to replace an inverter. That's typically about the only maintenance required with a solar array. As far as insurance, the farmer would typically want to make sure that they have enough personal property insurance if it's installed on the roof. It's an accessory to the roof or the personal property coverage on the insurance policy. If it's a ground mount array, typically that's going to follow what we call other structures coverage. Many farmers have much more insurance than they actually need for the farm, so they may not have to add any insurance there, and that's just there in case somebody runs a tractor into a ground mount, or hail or something like that would come along and do some extra damage to the panels. But typically you're not going to have any type of insurance claim. We did have one insurance claim, C&D recovery in Montgomery County. That facility did catch on fire. I don't know if you saw that on the regional news a few years back. That had nothing to do with the solar install at all, but just something internal caught on fire with the building, and an insurance claim had to be made, and they put a new solar array once the building got redone. So we're going to take care of the monitoring, take care of pretty much everything, and there's very limited customer responsibility beyond just soaking up the kilowatt hours. Okay. And next slide. This is a project in East Village, Montgomery County. And I know this isn't specifically ag related, but this will give you sort of an overview what that 0.5 megawatt system is as far as size wise. And I want to put a note on here because fences are required in Montgomery County in many installations, but not all. There is a waiver process in Montgomery County that we might not have to put a fence around it. But typically, if you're doing anything of vast size, you're going to have to put a fence around the array in Montgomery County. Now, I'm going to tell you, I own a farm myself in Washington County. I have 3-phase power that goes right through the middle of the farm. And I've been solicited by a lot of different community solar providers about putting a big array on my farm. And I'm going to tell you, I've hesitated because I've seen other localities who changed the tax structure for farmers. And that's something you might have to address, especially in the Ag Reserve District. So somebody could put community solar, lease out their land as a farmer in Montgomery County. And I don't know if there's any recourse that, the zoning wouldn't be changed in the future to commercial zoning. So other counties, other states, when they're looking for revenue, have changed that over to commercial zoning. So I'm hesitant to allow any company to do community solar on my property unless there's an assurance there that it's not going to be zoned commercially in the future. So if anybody has any questions on that, I'm here to answer any questions here at the end of the presentation. But the other thing you want to look for too, even with community solar, is make sure that the company installing is bonded. Because what's going to happen to all those panels on community solar or a larger project? So as the gentleman mentioned earlier, the Potomac Edison only controls projects up to 2 megawatts. If you go to pjm.com, they're a regional transmission organization. So if you're doing any project in Montgomery County over 2 megawatts, Potomac Edison's out of the equation. It goes through PJM, and you're going to get wholesale rates for the production of that array. They vary year to year, but you're probably looking about 3 to 3.5 cents per watt when you go over 2 megawatts. So that's sort of what you're looking at in Montgomery County. Next slide. This is just another project. This is Rock Hill Orchard. John and Mary, who I believe are on here too. Their system size is 136.48 kW system. If you look at their system, this is a combo of roof and ground, and you can see there's cattle, there's animals out, you know, grazing around the solar array. So you don't really lose pasture land, you know, with going solar. You know, the animals are very friendly. If you get a goat jumping up on the panel, they'll slide off and quickly learn a lesson and won't jump up anymore. So you can put these panels right out in pasture land, you know, and get a perfect orientation for the system. So we did that system in Mount Airy back in 2016. I think they're more than happy with it. We've had some nice open houses at their facility. They've been very gracious with that. So that's a roof ground combo, which some farmers like for shading and poultry, things like that. So next slide. This is Woodvale Farms in nearby Frederick County. That's an 87.75. This is another virtual aggregate metering project. The clients here do have 4 meters we're offsetting with this array. So again, you can offset multiple meters as long as they're in the same utility grid. So if their farm is in Potomac Edison, which it is, and they have another farm 3 miles away and it's in Pepco, you can't aggregate meter unless it's the exact same utility. So anything in Potomac Edison ag related, they can aggregate meter all those meters together. Even the project for CSAC that we did in Montgomery County, we're aggregate metering about 30 different properties for them, offsetting with that one common array in East Village. Okay. Next project. This gives you just an overview of ground mounts, a 49.5 kW system. And again, with the ground mounts, you're going to get optimization of the system. This particular system produces over 65,000 kilowatt hours a year. So some people asked, is it cost less to do ground mounts or roof mounts? It's sort of subjective to the actual scenario there on the ground. Because you're going to get a lot more production out of ground mounts than you will typically roof mounts due to shading and orientation challenges with some roofs. But if you have a perfect south roof and a perfect south ground array, they're going to have pretty equal production overall. But definitely if you have room for the ground mounts are great. Okay, next slide. Okay, now this is turn 14 distribution in Pennsylvania. The reason I brought this up is because we do a lot of these solar carports and ag lands because farmers like parking their equipment underneath there or having it for shading, for cattle, for horses. So there's a combo sort of you can do. These are sort of dual purpose. They're sort of carports and you can put them in ag land. Obviously we're showing them here in a parking lot situation, but they can be right in the middle of the farm. You go up Route 15 in Frederick County, you'll see a lot of farms out there that we've done these shading ports for animals, but they're just another option on the menu. But this would be the most expensive option because you're getting sort of a 2 for deal. You're getting a shelter and you're getting solar production. But I do see these coming up a lot more in ag land, and the farmers seem to like the carport, and it's just these have just come online in the last couple years, and they're going to probably be in a lot more places in Montgomery County in the future. So, but that's a brief overview of solar and ag in Montgomery County. And I'm here to answer any questions anybody has regarding solar production, anything at all that I can answer and help out with. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Brian. And certainly we will have some time for questions here in a few minutes. Christina,
Okay.
Thank you. That was really great. You want to pop the agenda back up quickly for me? Great. And we will have some questions, I see. The next on our agenda is logically John Fendrick from Rock Hill Orchard and Woodbourne Creamery. John?
Can you stop sharing so I can share? Okay. Okay, I'm a little technically challenged here because I'm on my non-work computer, so it's only used to having one screen at a time. It's kind of weird to me. So, okay, so Rock Hill Orchard, Woodbourne Creamery. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So diversified farm, we do agritourism, pick your own fruits and vegetables, corn maze. We also have a grass-fed Guernsey cows. We have a deal val robot that milks our cows, and we do value add. First dairy in Montgomery County in 60 years, probably the last dairy for the next 60 years, I'm guessing, but we shall see. Okay, so solar. Here, let me make this. Oh, I guess okay. Okay, as Brian said, we have 2 ground mounts. You could basically see them. I'll show you some other pictures. 200 panels, 100 panels, basically 104 on each ground mount. Heifer barn is 232 panels, installed in 2016, turned on, I guess, in 2017. It was sized to be about 89% of our electricity. So our electricity costs were around 30 to 36,000 a year, approximately. It's projected at 177 megawatt hours. We actual is around 189 last year, so which is good. We're over, which Brian sort of forgot to mention. We'll talk about a little bit, but the first year or two we had some major problems with lightning or surge suppression. So we actually did have some insurance costs on our things too. So, so this is so let me pull this out of the way. This is basically the lanes. So we designed this. Okay, so backing up, we'll talk about a little bit. We have a MALF easement. So this is a Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation easement on our property. And they don't they don't want you to take productive ag land and put into solar. And so we had to basically come up with a way to do this. So what we did is we put on each side of the lanes. So effectively, these lanes here, these are basically the cows. They either go north over here or go south over here. But this goes in and out to where the cows get milked. And so because we're based on each side of the lanes, it minimizes the amount of productive land. This side is actually non-cow lane anyway. This side has a little bit, but it's actually on that side, it's not very much usage. One of the things I will say is, so we are 700 feet and we have from over here is due west, all the wind in Montgomery County comes and hits us. All these ground mounts are in concrete. I would not even consider not putting them in concrete. The heifer barn that we have, the wind blew that building somewhat, and it's a big building. So to just be aware. In terms of cost 388,000. We got grants for about a third of the cost from USDA and Maryland Mathias grant. The USDA grant was a lot bigger. The Mathias grant, actually, I don't think you can get solar for anymore because it was energy efficiency and something else. But basically, now you can get the efficiency, but before you get just the solar part. there are these things called SRECs in Maryland. So these are basically payments that we get from the power company for producing solar. Last year we got 13,000. Other years we've gotten essentially nothing. And I will say this is like, if you're getting into solar, really look into this. The companies will tell you how much money you can get in SRECs. SRECs, they're very variable. Like when we did it, I mean, we were originally, it was estimated like 20,000 a year or something, or 20 or 30,000 a year in the original model. And I was like, no, that's because it's been going down. A year or two ago, Governor Hogan basically doubled the amount of renewable energy that each electric company had to do, which suddenly meant there was a market for SRECs again. So basically SRECs is where you can actually make some money in this thing. But over time, as more and more solar goes out, the SRECs will become less and less valuable, just because, they'll basically pay less and less and less. Because, when we got, I mean, I think one year we got maybe $500 or something. And I guess I should be happy we got anything. So it's just a picture of so Brian's picture he had was sort of over here. This, you can basically see the solar on the roof. This is just sort of the other direction of it under construction. I think, well, I don't know if you can, let's see if, there we go, scroll down a little bit. This building was actually built, but we knew we were going to put solar in when we built this building. So the building is actually sited literally due south, or due south with a little bit of correction, which is why it is actually at a weird angle to the rest of the dairy buildings here. And also, if you notice, the building itself is 60 feet wide, it's 60 foot of roof frontage. So it looks like a really weird building, but it was intended to put solar on it, because a typical 60-foot building, you're going to have 30 to 40 foot of a roof and then have a whole lot of space in the back, which is useless in terms of solar. So I mean, we purpose built this to do it. And I don't know, hopefully, let's see. Oh, yeah, I'll get to it in a minute. Okay, in terms of approvals, for us, we needed a MALF approval. So basically, so it had to go to the state. They had to approve it. To do that, that meant at first I had to go through county APAP approval. We also had to get a waiver from DPS because, at least at the time, they required impermeable surface underground mount arrays. I'm assuming that's no longer required if you're supposed to put pollinator habitats, but I had to get one. Otherwise, they wanted me to put asphalt under or gravel under the arrays. That was the rule in 2016 or 2017. So I don't know if that's still there because effectively we are. So the other thing is an ag building is not considered, is an ag structure. Doesn't require a commercial building permit. To get an array this size in, you need a commercial electrical permit. You can't get an commercial electrical permit unless you have a commercial building permit, which requires a series of meetings with DPS to convince them that yes, it's okay to do this. We were the first. We were the first farmer in Montgomery County to actually put ag on a building, and so it may have gotten easy, but just be aware that you may have to actually go have a meeting with Jeremy, with DPS, to convince them why you're right and they're wrong. Okay, the heifer building. So the other thing, because this was built for solar, the trusses are 2 foot on center instead of 4 foot. So I mean, there's solar ways. I mean, you can't just put, well, I don't believe you can just, Brian may say, yes, you can, I don't know, but I would be, most ag buildings, I mean, I have a shop building. I mean, it's not intended to have anything on the roof. It's, because it's a typical 4 foot on center truss. So you may or may not be able to put solar on a typical ag building. So so it may be something you can look into. You may be able to reinforce it. I don't know, but it's just something that to be aware of. So I mean, our building was actually engineered to hold the weight of the solar on it, which is something that the county actually goes to, or at least at the time they did. When we looked into this, they wanted to actually confirm the building would actually hold up the solar. Surge suppression. You want to get it, you want to spend it. So after in the first 2 years, we had about 120,000 in damages from 2 lightning strikes / surges. No lightning actually ever hit us, but it was nearby. And nearby in the world of solar is within two miles. So this little box right here, that's just one of them. But we spent around $30,000 or $40,000 to put surge suppression in. So there's surge suppression, sort of throughout this whole system. Now, I did not opt to pay for the other $30,000 for the lightning rods everywhere. So far, knock on wood, we're still doing okay. But it's something that we may have to do. Now, I will say that we, I don't know, it's sort of hard to tell, but right up here, they're these really big. I mean, we have 2 big transmission lines on our property. One's going this way, and one's actually, you can see all the way at the very top over here, another. So somehow, that's why I say it's not lightning. I mean, we actually had lightning hit this pole right here and there was flames top to bottom. I only know this because one of my guys was out here bringing cows in, and he said there's flames top to bottom. Nothing happened to solar, but something else happened another time. So just because they're really tall poles nearby doesn't necessarily mean it's typically not lightning. It's probably surge that's coming into your system. So if you're going to do something, very, very important. Going back, Brian mentioned about the transformer. So when we built this whole building, we actually brought power up from the street. We have single phase power. They actually had to upgrade the transformer to do it. One of the things, luckily, we actually had extra underground conduit, because they required more conduit. With a bigger transformer, they require more conduit. So just be aware, things that, even though you do everything that they require to do, you get a bigger transformer, you're going to have to do more. Luckily, we just had an extra one, but otherwise, literally, we were going to have to rip up the concrete to get more conduit in. Okay, monitoring. So as Brian mentioned, one of the so this is just screenshots of my phone. I can actually, I can go, and I used to do this more often, go in and look. It's sort of hard to tell, but you can see right here, it's a little bit darker color. You can basically, and this just has to do with where the ground mounts are and based upon the sort of behind the building. But normally you could just look at this, and if you see black, that means it's a problem, because that means there's no electricity being produced or produced in the last 24 hours. And at that point, so I would do this. Sometimes I'd call up Paradise, though they're actually pretty good. I mean, they just sort of show up. They'll be like, one guy showed up a couple months ago, and I was like, what are you doing here? Oh, we just came in. There was a problem with an inverter. We came to fix it. It's like, it was like, yay, that sounds really good. So, so it wasn't something I really thought about. I mean, they sold it to me, but it's something to be aware of. But the reality is they really do come, because, as he said, there is a guarantee. So it's in their best interest to do it. I mean, to keep me a happy customer, that's always good. But the reality is there is a guarantee of some amount. But so my phone, I can do this. I can actually, this is just like I guess a debut or something from July, I guess. But you can basically go look, and, basically typically what you don't want to see is a low bar on a really sunny day. I mean, a nice sunny day, you should get lots and lots of, bar should be high. But like when we had, half our inverters. So what happened with our inverters when we had surge, we literally had some of them were like black cinders on the inside. So they just were all black, and I think that's it. And feel free, come visit us for some ice cream.
John, thank you so much. That was extraordinarily helpful, both you and Brian, and the practical advice, terrific. Again, if we've got questions in the chat, we will hit those here very shortly, but I want to turn it over to Cindy and Tom at Montgomery County Green Bank so they can tell us a little bit more about economics.
Thanks, Carolyn. Tom's actually going to start us off. Tom Day, our CEO. Let me go ahead and pull my slides up and pass it over to Tom.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks. Hi, I'm Tom Deo. I'm the CEO of the Montgomery County Green Bank. And Carolina, Christina, thanks for helping us put this together. And we always want to try to bring as much as we can in support to the county and the ag reserve and the farmers in terms of helping projects move forward. I love these kind of things because I learn more on them than I do on the we're here to talk to you about the financing, but I think these other aspects of it are far more important to you in terms of what is the zoning, what does it mean to you, how does an installer actually do this, and how does it help and support the businesses. So we're pleased to be a part of this and try to help maybe fill the last part of an equation, which is, all right, how do I pay for this thing, right? So I think you heard a little bit of that from Brian and from John in terms of some of the economic benefits in there. And Cindy's actually going to take over after I start and do an introduction here to talk to you about ways that we have funding resources available if necessary. But what is the Montgomery County Green Bank? We're actually a nonprofit. We were created by the county in 2015, and our job is to support county residents and businesses to undertake clean energy investments on their properties. And renewable energy, solar PV is one of those significant investments we want to support. We actually don't do direct lending. We work with financial partners out there who do the originating lending, but because we use our capital in support of them, we actually allow for more affordable, more lenient type of financing to go in place. A lot of lenders don't understand this particular way of lending and these kind of finances. And so, our funding that we got from the county is used to sort of create more flexible terms out there for the end users. So what we do, we go out, we try to find where is that gap. We try to find the partners who can do it. And then we put our money at play behind them in order to create the financing vehicles. And Cindy will talk about what those are. What's the next slide? And it took us years, but we finally got our article in the Washington Post just a couple of weeks back over Christmas, and then again on New Year's. They put an online version on Christmas, and then we were in the print. This is the print version on January 1st. So we heard sort of were the holiday treat during the holiday period. But it was nice to see. It does convey how the work that we've been doing has been helping local businesses and properties, condominiums, and then in churches we've been supporting with respect to solar activities. And we really are trying to be as available as we can. We appreciate Jeremy and Mike as well. We've been talking to the Office of Ag to make sure they're clued into what we can do. And if there's needs out there that they're able to convey it to the businesses out there that we can provide our financing support. So I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Cindy so she can walk through our financial products and how they fit. So Cindy?
Sure, thanks, Tom. I just have a sort of bring it back to the basic slide here on why would we use renewable energy. I mean, sometimes we take for granted sort of the environmental benefits. So I always like to bring it up. I'm an environmentalist. So let's see, help with the environment, add value to your property, and lower your energy costs. So those are just 3 reasons why. A lot of people ask me about the timeline. So how long does it take for a solar project? Brian, if you disagree, go ahead and jump in. But just from what I've seen for some commercial projects, usually the development of it takes a few months. Once you get your permitting and things like that, the actual installation doesn't take too long. And then once you have permission to go ahead and use the system, you're all set. So any questions on that, let me know. What to expect during your installation, just a few different steps. Again, folks asked me to go over this, so I rolled it out, but if you guys want to jump in, let me know. So once all of the contracts are signed, right, that's sort of the beginning of the timeline. So however long it takes for everyone to come into agreement on what's going to be done, how much it's going to cost, and who's going to pay for it, then the fund starts and the installer usually goes ahead and submits for permits and interconnections. And once those are approved, which I said would be a few months, the installation scheduled, right? It might not be available right away. So you get on the schedule for the installer. However long the installation will take to complete, your installer should be able to give you the best idea based on your property. And then you schedule your county inspections. Sometimes the inspectors ask for a couple things to be switched out. So that's why it has first through final. You may have a couple inspections to get to that final one. And once you have final inspection from the county, send that over to Pepco or Potomac Edison. Sorry for putting Pepco there. There are actually 3 different utilities in the county. And then Pepco will come out, swap your meter, do any changes that they want to do, and give you final authorization to operate. And then you can go ahead and turn on your system and start saving money. And of course, the planet, my favorite part. Just to touch on how the Green Bank can help you more specifically, we've got a couple options if you're looking to own your solar system and if you're looking to rent. So here we have our 2 options for owning the system. The first one we call Clear. It's a loan for energy efficiency and renewables. As Tom said, we partner with local banks. The term is up to 12 years. You don't have to put any money down. We can finance the whole thing. There are low interest rates. People might say, why would I use the Green Bank and not just go directly to the local bank? Well, we have special funding and we have competitive rates, a little bit lower than what's out there in the market. So that's why you use us. We secure the equipment. There's no prepayment penalty. There's another option called CPACE, which you can see is property assessed. It actually goes on your tax bill. So the benefit of CPACE is that if you sell your property, there's no switching over of the loan. It automatically gets transferred over. There's nothing that the new owner has to sign. It goes with the property on the tax bill. It gets passed right over. This one has a longer term, so your monthly payments are going to be a little bit less than if you did a shorter term, of course. 20 to 25 years, low interest rates. Again, you can finance the whole thing, so no down payment. It's secured on the tax bill, as I mentioned, and also partner with a local bank. So if you wanted to rent your system, we have a new product called the Power Purchase Program, or you might hear it referred to as a PPA. We also work with a developer, and we put in most of the funding for this one. Basically, this developer not only puts in the rest of the funding, they also own your system and they take care of all the maintenance and operations. So they would go ahead and sign a contract with an installer like Brian and Paradise Energy to build the system. And then they would sign a contract with the property owner, with the farmer, to pay them for the system's electricity. Usually the goal is to get it a little bit less than what you're paying now, and it stays that way. That's the goal. You would have to have an installer go out and take a look and see how big the system could be, what kind of price they could get you. They look at your bills and everything like that. And then you can get an idea of how much you'd be paying below the utility. You get credit on your bill, net metering for any extra that you generate. And as I mentioned, the maintenance and operations are all taken care of. So the difference between renting and owning a system does have a lot to do with the maintenance and operations. So if you own your system, if you need to do any maintenance, which John, you were just telling us about, it comes out of your pocket. If you rent a system, then the maintenance and operations responsibility comes out of the developer's pocket. So it's a little bit different. If you own your system, you do get the financial benefits, the incentives that are available. So there's a tax credit from the federal government, currently at 26% for the rest of this year. So you have to get started soon. And solar renewable energy credits, which you can sell. They're not as much money as the federal tax credit, of course, but you do get some back from those. And Maryland also has a state grant. So what to do, how do you get started? If you wanted some help, you can contact the Office of Ag. Both the Green Bank and the Office of Ag, we both have an installer list of folks that we work with in the area, people that we have used before as well. The Office of Ag, as they mentioned, they have county info on the regulations, and they also do soil condition reporting. We can help you manage your project. We can give you advice on financing. We can give you a financial comparison if you're looking at different options, and insights as well. So that's all that I have. Thank you so much. I pass it back to you, Carolyn and Christina.
Excellent. Really, really great. And I liked the graphics. That was cool. Right, so we have questions in the chat, or any that you want to add now. And of course I lost it here. Cindy, Christina, can you direct me? I know that some people have been answering questions as we've been going along. I see the last question starting at the very, Lee Langstaff wanted to note that Woodbourne Creamery has the best ice cream ever. Thank you for that. There you go, John. Looks like Doug Boucher has asked you to talk about your experience grazing livestock under the arrays. While I saw the pictures, looked like that was a place where they walked. Do you have any answer for that?
So we don't actually, at our farm, we actually don't graze under the arrays. They'd have to be up about 10 feet off the ground. I mean, Paradise actually put in something in Frederick County for a farmer that also has robots that I'm going to say they kind of have like carports out in the fields. And those are up, much higher off the ground. I mean, I think the key thing is, I'd actually be, I mean, we have cows near ours, but we actually keep electric fence around them because cows will eat anything. And the last thing you want is for your cows to start eating all the wires in the back of those arrays. I mean, it might not be good for them, but the reality is going to cost you an awful lot of money. So, so basically we don't let any animals underneath of them. But that's, basically cows, it literally have to be 10 feet up and strong because, I mean, it's, cows with they're 10,000, 1,000 pounds, 1,500 pounds, they're rubbing, and they love rubbing on those poles.
Brian, did you have anything you wanted to add to that at all, or?
No, I mean, it depends on the animals, how, viable it is to let them graze. I mean, we have other farms where goats are present all the time. But what we're doing now versus John's system, we're putting a mesh netting on the back side of them so none of the animals can get to the wiring and things. So it's required now in Frederick County to put that mesh netting back. So it's a little different process install wise now.
Great. Thank you. I actually wanted to make a clarifying point, and Jeremy or Mike can verify this for me. But for these accessory systems within the Ag Reserve under the provisions of the fairly recently passed CTA, I did not think there were any limitations, soil classification limitations for accessory systems. Those limitations kick in for the community systems. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, Caroline.
Okay, thank you, both of you.
However, wait, if I could just clarify, I mean, yes, that's going to be true, but like at a farm like mine that has an easement through like MALF or some other group, if you have an AEP easement or something, if you come in front of either the state or the county board and you're going to put on really prime productive soils, chances are that you're going to be asked to move it.
Thank you for that, John. Thank you so much for that clarification. And very important to note that the CTA had certain restrictions and provisions, but quite rightly note that easements, you need to look very carefully at and talk with your easement holders to see what you can and cannot do. And I was very impressed with how creative John's operation was to make sure that they could accommodate the solar while still meeting the terms of their easement. So that was pretty impressive. Any other, am I missing anything in the chat? Like I said, I saw that some things were answered. I would love for Christina here somehow to share the survey so that we can get you all to provide some other questions that we can visit and provide email form.
So Caroline, I had a question for Brian. I think it was a little bit answered in the chat, but this whole concept of the 200% over, when does that come into play? When do folks decide that that's something they want to go to? Because what factors make someone think that they should go to 200%?
That's a great question. So if I were considering doing a 200% system, I'm going to look at it from a depreciation variable. So I know I'm going to get the tax credit at 26%. That's great. I'm going to get the Maryland State commercial grant if I'm an ag operation versus the residential grants. That's another several $1,000s. But the big thing's depreciation. So if you're a farmer and you're writing off 50% of your bill for business purposes, you can take depreciation on the cost of that system. So any business out there, just a standard business, let's just say not a farm, you can depreciate the cost of the system. So you're going to see the payback come back much more exponentially quicker if you can depreciate the cost of the systems, and many farmers do. Now, sometimes it's like a lightning rod when they first go into solar, and I'll ask the farmer, do you write off a portion of your bill? They say, well, I've always planned to do that. Well, if you're going solar, you better just start the depreciation schedule right away. Because on the federal side, you can take accelerated depreciation all in year one now, which is huge. On the state side, you're going to do your 5-year maker depreciation schedule or 10-year straight line. But if you can depreciate the cost of the system, the payback's going to be much, much quicker. In Montgomery County, I've seen 3-year paybacks, full paybacks for solar in Montgomery County if they're able to depreciate the cost of the system.
So even though that overage is at a much smaller pay rate, the depreciation still makes it economically viable to do that larger size system?
Yes, because even though you're only getting 50 cents on the dollar for anything over 100%, you're still getting 100% of your SREC. So let me clarify how the SREC works. Every 1,000 kilowatt hours your system produces, you get one energy stock or SREC per year. Right now they're trading, let's say, about $70 a share. So if you have a small residential system, and it's producing 10,000 kilowatt hours, you're going to take 10 times 70, you're making $700 a year. Maryland's got a very aggressive renewable energy portfolio. By 2030, half the production of all utilities has to come from renewables by 2030. So you're going to see rates go up exponentially in anticipation of that, because the utilities are going to have to start buying a lot more SRECs in the future. And regionally, so let me just step out of Montgomery County for a second. It takes about 1 to 2 years for a utility to get an increase through the Public Service Commission. The average increase we're seeing regionally right now, because everything's up inflation-wise, is 26%. But if you come to any quality solar installer in July or August and say, I want a system in by the end of the year to take advantage of the 26% tax credit, it's not going to happen. You need to come to the solar installer now. There's going to be such a panic by the end of this year to get solar installed, because this is the last year of the 26%. Pretty much every company's Q4 is probably already spoken for. And when I say that, every CEO and CFO wants solar installed in Q4 to take advantage of the tax credit. But if somebody's thinking about solar and they're serious about it, they should be doing it the first 6 months of this year, not the last 6 months, because odds are it's not going to be operational and you're not going to have your interconnection done by the end of the year. So.
Thank you for that. Now, are there any other, did I miss something in the chat? Any other further real-time clarifications or questions? Because as Christina clued me into, because I just don't know any better, apparently the survey will happen automatically when we close the meeting, when we end the meeting. Is that right, Christina? Okay. We promised you folks that we would try to keep this to an hour, because we know you have a life. And I think we're just about there. And I thank all of you for joining. This will be recorded and available in a link that will come to you. And the survey is another opportunity for you to share any thoughts or questions you may have. I see that there's one more message down here, and that's this thank you from Cindy. All right, well, thank you to all of you. And let's see what we can do about getting solar going. I think, again, thanking our partners, thanking Brian, John. That's so helpful. Very, very happy that you were able to join us. Thanks to all.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Caroline, Christina.
Bye.